Hello. Before I start on talking about the concept of Sabla, I would like to share some key facts about the Sultanate of Oman in perspective on opportunities for investors in Oman. Under His Majesty Sultan Qaboos bin Said Al Said's rule, an era of economic and political reforms have ushered in the opening of the nation to foreign trade, diplomacy, and investment. The Sultanate is experiencing strong economic growth and ushering in large-scale reforms and infrastructure developments. It has not only strong GDP growth and low inflation rate, Oman is also one of the fastest growing population in the world. With its long-standing US ally with a free trade agreement and its trends towards privatization, it ranks amongst the top 10 most secure countries in the world. A key upside for investor is a streamlined tax framework coupled with low levels of taxation, which means businesses in Oman have to spend relatively little time paying taxes in comparison to many of Oman's regional peers. A growing consumer market and rising rates of private financial consumption are, however, boosting the country's increasingly substantial import maker, and we are sure this could provide a range of opportunity for the investors. The Omani government's $78 billion 5-year infrastructure spending plan is now yielding results and eliminating threats that stems from supply chain inadequacies. As you are aware, it has financed hundreds of infrastructure projects which are at varying stages of completion. Investors are now starting to see new roads and port facilities become operational, while new airports and country's first rail network are in the pipeline. Moreover, these projects are stimulating economic growth, which is forecasted to exceed 3% over the next 4 years. Assuming the country's oil revenue are sustained and public financing for infrastructure project continues, logistic risk in Oman is poised to come down, which will definitely come as welcome news to existing and prospective investors. It is forecasted volumes handled on Oman's freight transport network are set to enjoy strong growth over the coming years. The sector will benefit not only from a rapidly growing economy and consumer base, but also from a sizable investment. This will not only benefit the sector directly through the construction of a new railway line, investments in airports, and new terminals at the country's port, but it will also develop industries heavily relying on the freight network system. An appropriate example of this is Valley's iron ore pelletizing plant at Sohar, which generate considerable traffic of dry bulk ships at the port of Sohar. The upgrades to Oman's port will improve their efficiency, capacity, and connectivity both internally and externally, which will provide businesses with greater access to international supply chains. Located on the strategic axis of the Indian Ocean and Arabian Gulf, Oman boasts accessible trade routes and fast transport times to the world's most attractive emerging markets. Strong maritime and air connections not only mitigate Oman's transport risk but improve performance in trade procedures and governance as well. Maritime connectivity is already extensive and air connectivity is growing steadily. Moreover, infrastructure in the country is of a high quality. This improves efficiencies and reducing shipping costs and lead times, which are competitive on a regional and global scale. The government of Oman has long been supportive of port development projects, and at the start of this year launched a request for expression of interest for the lease to operate and manage country's first dry port as it seeks to reform regulation and attract foreign investors. The South Al-BATINAH logistic area or Sabla as it is officially known, is a cornerstone of a long-term strategy by the government of Oman to position Oman as a logistic gateway to the Middle East. A project site spread over 8,100 hectares has been identified at the intersection of the Barka Nakhal Road and the Muscat Al-BATINAH Expressway route, as well as a planned railway line between Sohar and Muscat. Activities and facilities within Sabla will include a customs-bonded dry port, an intermodal rail terminal, warehouse and distribution facilities, open storage yards, truck parking, and service centers, amongst others. The government is funding the $26 million startup cost for the inland port because it is a greenfield project that needs to be quickly established. A steering committee made up of top officials representing a number of government ministries and regulatory agencies is spearheading the implementation of the logistic area project. It will also go a long way in addressing the need for modern logistic infrastructure and services in the Sultanate of Oman. A master plan envisages dedicated areas for logistic, commercial activities, light industrial and residential and supporting services within the Sabla. Holding pride of place within the project area is a full-service dry port designed to serve as a midway location for shippers to receive and deliver their cargo originating from or bound for Sohar port. Additionally, it will help drive the growth of a logistic-based economic sector in the Sultanate, fueling in turn employment generation, SME development, and inward investment as well. Linked by rail and road with major industrial and commercial centers across North Oman, the logistic hub also has the potential to stimulate economic growth with beneficial implication for the entire country. Longer term, the Sabla project is expected to catalyze the growth of a new urban development that in turn will fuel non-oil economic investment and employment generation. Development is currently focused on Phase 1, which comprises a 30-hectare area that will function as a custom-bonded gateway for shippers to receive and deliver cargo originating from or destined to the Greater Muscat area by the country's ports, including the port of Sohar. With custom-bonded warehouse, ample capacity, and eventual connectivity with the Muscat-BATINAH Expressway and GCC rail, the dry port will be ideally positioned to serve the needs of the shipper and logistic service providers. Activities and facilities within the logistic area will include a custom-bonded dry port, eventual intermodal rail terminal, warehouse and distribution facilities, open area storage yard, truck parking, and service center. The inland depot will alleviate capacity issues in Sohar and offer shippers more attractive free time and per diem rates for storage. The facility will also support the receipt of empty containers for exports load, return management, or repairs. A container freight station for consolidating and deconsolidating cargo is also thought about. The logistic area will be oriented towards the western and central part of the project site in order to facilitate the eventual intermodal rail connectivity and remain close to highway access while preserving more valuable highway and regional roadway frontage for commercial activities. Commercial area anticipates the development of retail outlets for consumer-based products, wholesale facilities, office space, restaurants, auto malls, a convention center, and other hospitality-related businesses such as hotels. These areas are strategically planned along the major connecting roadways for attractiveness while also mitigating the amount of small vehicle traffic having to combine with heavier truck traffic associated with the logistic and light industrial areas. Light industrial areas may include textile production, electronics manufacturing, food processing, commercial bakeries, automobile and equipment machinery repair and processing. The residential area will be the land reserved for the prospect of establishing guest workers and executive housing for employees of companies. Including in the master plan is an eventual intermodal rail transfer area once the GCC railway line gets completed, areas for administrative functions, customer service and government services including customs. The project is initially planned to be developed over 6 phases, with phase 1 block A to be earmarked for the dry port. The logistic area is currently conceived to be approximately 44% of the total development. The commercial, residential and the light industrial area represent 9, 18 and 10% respectively. The long-term strategy of the project will seek to also develop dedicated areas for commercial activities, light industrial business and residential area in addition to the supporting facilities, with a view to each of the function to become interdependent over time. To summarize, let us stress upon the fact that what are the major factors that makes strong investment growth in Oman. It can be broadly classified under 4 major factors. Its economic growth and stability, its strategic location as a trade hub, its position as a member of the Gulf Cooperation Council and its free trade agreement with the United States of America, and its modern transport infrastructure. Now the next question that naturally comes to our mind is, what are the priority sectors for investment and what are the advantages for investors in Oman? The priority sectors for investment in Oman are the manufacturing, transport, tourism, ICT and telecommunications, and healthcare sectors. These sectors offers the greatest growth and investment potential in Oman. Oman offers investors various investment opportunities across its free zones, special economic zone, and industrial estate, each providing fully serviced area with industry-specific clusters. Investors benefit from the first mover's advantage into a relatively young zones. The country offers attractive incentive packages including highly discounted land and utilities. The country offers one-stop shop services. Its adjacencies to ports allowing for efficient and low-cost movement of goods. It also provides 100% foreign ownership, 10-year exemption of corporate tax, no customs duties on goods brought into the free zone, minimal Omanization level of requirement, no minimum capital investments or requirements, no tax on personal income, no restriction on repatriation of capital profits and investments. The need for an intermodal hub increased in August last year when the government repurposed the port of Sultan Qaboos in Muscat for cruise businesses and shifted all container and general cargo about 230 kilometers north to the port of Sohar, which was originally built to handle break bulk and bulk commodities such as iron pellets and coal to support industrial activity with re-export potentials. The old port of Muscat is in the historic city center and could no longer sustain the cargo growth. It handled more than 450,000 TEUs in 2012, well above the stated annual capacity of 300,000 TEUs. The port is constrained by non-industrial property and narrow streets, and its layout is not conducive to expansion. Morning and afternoon truck restrictions prevent receiving and delivery for several hours a day. The decree of closing the port of Sultan Qaboos to cargo has forced shippers to incur greater transport costs moving goods by truck back to the Muscat metropolitan area. Keeping the above problem in mind, the government is developing the South Al-BATINAH logistic area, Sabla, with the goal of reducing the impact of port changes on inland delivery, as well as address the shortage of commercial real estate for warehousing and distribution in Muscat. Omani officials, intent on mitigating the extra trucking costs associated with the rerouting cargo through a more distant port, are also planning to establish a highway corridor for rigs with tandem trailer. This would be the first of its kind in the nation. The expressway will have mixed traffic, but under the proposed program, licensed motor carriers could operate dual trailer trucks on the designated routes. The project Sabla has attracted significant investment interest since it was first unveiled last year by the Supreme Council of Planning. Covering an area of around 90 million square meters, the area will feature dedicated zones earmarked for multimodal connectivity, dry port, light industries, value-adding activities, commercial services, warehousing and logistics, urban and residential development, hotels and leisure areas. It is presumed the government is taking on the initial build risk to get over the startup phase, and once it has more consistent volume, the project will be restructured to involve much more private capital, freeing up government money for social related projects. Sabla will improve supply chain efficiencies because containers offloaded from vessels can be immediately trucked from Sohar under a customs bond without having to be appraised or access duties until they reach the bonded warehouse. For example, large retailers can then shuttle shipments to warehouses immediately outside the inland port and supply their stores on the other side of the development. The inland depot will also alleviate capacity issues in Sohar and other shippers more attractive free time per diem rate for storage. In part, the robust interest stems from the logistic area's strategically advantageous location in South BATINAH Governorate, which is conducive for a hub for logistic, warehousing and distribution, consolidation, re-exports of containers and general cargo alike. With excellent multimodal connectivity, with seaports along the coast, industrial park and free zones will ensure speedy and seamless handling and movement of these goods. Identified for implementation as part of the Phase 1 development of the logistic area is a dry port complete with road networks, warehousing and distribution facilities to service shippers and transporters. Complementing these facilities will be administrative buildings, utilities, stores and other support infrastructure. The project, initially spearheaded by the Supreme Council for Planning and currently under the management of PEIE, the Multimodal Sabla project is part of a longer-term national initiative to position the Sultanate of Oman as a logistic gateway to the wider Gulf and Middle East region. The Sultanate's logistic strategy for the period 2014 to 2040 has 5 aims, which are namely increasing the contribution of the logistics sector in the GDP, increasing the share of Omani commodities that comes to the area, generating fresh job opportunities for Omanis, improving the Sultanate's ranking in world logistic and industrial indicators, and enhancing the Sultanate's position in the world logistic map. With its strategic location midway between Muscat and Sohar, and with proposed state-of-art facilities which offers one-stop shop services to logistic providers and customers, and excellent connectivity with Omani ports and airports, industry hubs and GCC market, it will effectively position Sabla as a nerve center of Oman future logistic industry and promote Oman as a gateway to the region. Thank you very much for your kind attention. We hope to see you soon in Sabla.